Welcome to Moore County Schools Family Learning Series Math Night, designed for families with students in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. What better thing to do on a Thursday night after election than talk all things math, am I right? But we are excited that you have landed here with us this evening to share in our excitement for some new math resources that we have in our district this year, and also to get some tips and suggestions for how to help your students while learning remotely during this crazy year, especially if you're helping your student with math instruction. So we're going to go ahead and get started by introducing our phenomenal panelists who are going to serve as your expert teacher leaders throughout this evening. And we're going to start with Miss Baker, who is a 3rd grade teacher from Robbins Elementary. Miss Baker teaches 3rd grade at Robbins, and she's taught there for 8 years. Although reading is her passion, math has actually become her favorite subject to teach. She loves seeing those aha moments when students work hands-on with math or learn a different problem-solving strategy. She strives daily to foster mathematical thinking and enthusiasm in every lesson. So thank you for joining us, Miss Baker. Next, we have the phenomenal Mr. Yannick, who teaches 5th grade math at Southern Pines Elementary. This is his 15th year in education, and of those 15 years, he's taught 12 years in 5th grade. He has also spent 1.5 years in 4th grade and 1.5 years as an assistant principal. Why does he teach math? Well, he teaches math because he was actually a struggling math student himself in elementary school and middle school. And during that time, he had a few teachers who did not make it seem as though he would ever grasp the concepts. And at that point, he knew he wanted to be a teacher since he was 8, and he swore that he would never make a student feel like math was out of their reach. Don't you wish you had one of those teachers for your kids at home? That is such a wonderful story, and we're so excited to have you join us. Next, we have Miss Simmons, who teaches kindergarten at Robbins Elementary as well. She's been teaching 8 years, just like Miss Baker at Robbins. One thing that she loves about teaching math is that it's so engaging and it can be hands-on. Math is something you can do outside of the classroom, and you can see it everywhere. And that's what makes math so exciting for her young children. Next, we have Miss Cavanis, who teaches 2nd grade at High Falls Elementary. Miss Cavanis, oh, I lost my place, I apologize. Miss Cavanis is also in her 8 years of teaching, so it looks like 8 years is the charm. She loves teaching students to persevere through those challenging math problems and to see their brains grow. Next, from the district office, we have some support to help today. Myself, Mariah Morris, I'm our Innovation and Special Projects Coordinator. We have Miss Gray, who is our math specialist at the district office for K-5 math. And we have Miss Atkins, who is an instructional support facilitator who works with Robbins Elementary. So we are so fortunate to have all of these amazing panelists join us tonight and work with us as we learn about some great resources to use at home. They're going to go through all different things that can help you while you're teaching your students at home, and then they're also going to answer questions for you at the end. So as you think about questions throughout the presentation, please drop those in the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen or the chat feature. Either of those, we'll be monitoring them and collecting them, and then at the end we'll open it up for Q&A. So please, we want this to be interactive as much as possible. So if you're having a struggle in a particular area, please drop that in the chat and we'll make sure to give you as much support as we can. But before I turn it over to Ms. Gray to go from here, I just want to thank you all for all you're doing for your students at home. I know this year has been a challenge and a struggle in many ways to teach. And I'm a parent of 2 elementary school students myself. And even as a teacher, sometimes teaching math at home is a struggle because the concepts seem so different from when we were children. And so we're all in this together, and we thank you for partnering with us tonight to make sure that this year is successful. So Ms. Gray, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so we are very grateful and appreciative of our Moore County Schools leadership team, as well as our Board of Education, as they have supported the purchase and the implementation of the K-5 Math Big Ideas curriculum materials. We've not had math textbooks per se in several years, so this was a dream come true. Not only, as you know, Mariah was sharing about how these new strategies and the new thinking is going on, and we've had to learn it as educators as well. So it's a great tool, a great communication tool for our families, our students, and our teachers to be able to support one another with the mathematics, the strategies, the vocabulary, and so forth. So we're very grateful. So we have adopted the Big Ideas Mathematics in K-5, and we have workbooks for all of our students. And you will see here, this is their array of K-5. So kindergarten here is the green with the slinky, red is the first grade with the pinwheels, second grade is blue with the snowflakes, third grade right here is green with the origami, fourth grade is red here with the lightning bolts, and then fifth grade over here in the corner is the blue with the water and sodium molecules. And so with that being said, there's our students have access to both the student workbook that they should be bringing home with them, that they can write in and show their work. And our teacher panelists are going to share with you some of the tools and resources that are in there to help all of us as parents and educators. We also have a digital platform over here in which our students can access. They can do assignments from home, take assessments, play games, and Brooke is going to take you through a lot of the fun features that are available in the digital format. Some of our materials are available in Spanish, especially for Robbins Elementary, who has the dual language program on their campus. So we're very fortunate to have that as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Brooke, who's going to get us started sharing, looking at some parent support resources.
The first thing we'd like to share with you is the QR codes in the student workbook. So you've probably seen these already. They are on the practice pages, the homework page. If you haven't seen them, then they're usually at the end of each lesson if your child's bringing the workbook home, or it could just be that they may be doing it digitally. But if you look at the top of these pages, you'll see a QR code, and you can scan this with a QR reader that's either on your smartphone, or now you can use the camera on your smartphone and it acts just like a QR reader, or your iPad. So these videos really do help you understand the mathematics, like Michelle was talking about, how since it's definitely changed some since we were in school. But they do it in a way that's set up to where it'll take you through a video and talk you through exactly how to work, like you see the sample problem up on the top of that page. It just so that it can help you feel more comfortable, you know, guiding your child through the mathematics. There are lots of other features that are available for you as you either work with your child, you know, on their homework, or just to get them more excited about math. So one of the things that you're going to see, whether your child has an iPad or a Chromebook that is just available on their dashboard, are the games. Some of the games go directly with the chapter that your child's working on, but then also there are games that are available K-5. And so if you click the games, it'll take you to a variety of options. This one is an example of one of the games. So you can see we answered one of the questions wrong. And the games have a built-in feature where you can ask for them to show you a hint. And so you saw how it took away some of those numbers. So that way it, made it scaffolded the problem. So it made it a little easier to answer. Another one of the features available are the math musicals. There are lots of musicals available for every grade level on lots of concepts. They're really fun. There are even puppets, cute little puppets that go along with them that we use at school. So. So that you can see that musical is about counting to 10, and they used things within the musicals that are relatable. So, I mean, my own child sings the fish cracker song when we have goldfish. So seriously, so it's something that it's constantly in their head, but it helps them, with the mathematics. Another really great tool or feature is the math tools that you can find down at the bottom of your child's dashboard once they've logged in. These are interactive online manipulatives, and there are a variety of them available. Rec and Rec, number line, base 10 blocks, linking cubes, like basically anything that you could think of. And so it's been very helpful, particularly now with, online learning. But you can use these just to, just on your own, or you can use these to help, again, with your child's homework.
Ms. Gray, I don't think we can really hear this very much. So if Brooke just wants to kind of talk through it, and then maybe we could move on.
Did I hear that you're having a hard time hearing it?
That's right.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. All right, so then the last piece, Brooke?
The last one are videos. There are videos available that are on some STEM concepts, or there are also videos that are specific to like your grade level, math in your grade level.
Okay, so I am going to talk about how to access big ideas on your iPad. If your child is in kindergarten or in first grade, they received an iPad to do their virtual work. Once you cut the iPad on, look for the blue letter C icon. It is called Clever. Once you click it, it will activate a camera. You can either use your child's Clever badge to log on, or tap the blue rectangle at the bottom of the screen and put in your child's username and password. This will bring you to your child's Clever homepage. This page has many different icons to click on for more learning. Look for the icon that says Big Ideas Learning. It has a blue and green diamond. Once you click on it, it will take you to your child's Big Ideas dashboard. Once you're on the dashboard, you will see their ebook, which is a digital copy of their math book they have at home or at school. Under that, you will see their assignments. If you click See All, it will show you all the assignments they have to do, the assignments that are overdue, and the assignments that they've submitted already. Under the Assignments tab, you will see Games. These games are all tied to the chapter and skills your child is working on in class, and these games can be played anytime. Under the Games tab, you will see the Skills tab. This segment provides practice in the skills your child is learning in that chapter. Under the Skills tab are the math musicals. This is where you can listen to songs that help reinforce the skills being taught in that chapter, like the fish crackers that Brooke was talking about earlier, about counting to 10. Under the Skills tab are the student resources. This is where you can find the glossary, math tools, and videos to help your child learn the different skills in math. But going back to the assignments, you can see, again, all the assignments that are due, their due dates, the ones that are past due, and the ones that are submitted. If you click the assignment that was submitted, that your child submitted, and the teacher has graded it and sent it back, you are able to see how your child performed on that assignment. You can see what they got correct or incorrect. Anything that's incorrect, you're able to click that problem and watch a video about how to do it correctly. After the video, under it, there's a skills tab that they can practice that skill to get better at it and be able to do better the next time. There is another way to access the ebook and the math musicals and assignments and games. At the top right corner of your iPad, you will see 3 lines, and we like to call that the hamburger. If you click that, it will bring up the screen you see before you. And this is where you will find the ebook, the math musicals, and the trainer, the skill trainer. If you want to go back to the other screen or the dashboard, you'll look at the top left of your corner and you will hit the home button, the little house, or you can hit the home button at the bottom beside help that says dashboard, and that will take you back. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Baker, who will talk to you about accessing Big Ideas on your child's Chromebook.
Thank you, Tremaine. I'm going to show you how to access Big Ideas Math on a student Chromebook. Students in grades 2 through 5 should have received a Chromebook to use. Big Ideas Math is very similar to the access on the iPad. Many Chromebooks have the Clever homepage loaded by default, or it can be found on the school's Weebly page. Students will choose Login with Google on that Clever homepage. And then once that page has loaded, they will choose the Big Ideas Math app from available apps. Sometimes you have to scroll down to see all available apps on the Chromebook, but it is that icon with the green and blue diamond. After clicking on the app, the Big Ideas Math dashboard will load. This page includes the ebook, assignments that have been assigned by their teacher, a game section, the math musicals, and the skills trainer. All of these features are the same from on the iPad. This page just looks like it's on a different orientation, but all of these features are the same. This next slide shows the bottom section of that dashboard page. It's titled Student Resources. This page includes tools that are helpful to students and parents. Parents, have you ever wondered what a tape diagram was? Or how to show intervals on a number line? Well, this is your answer. This section includes math tools, skills review, the digital ebook link, helpful videos, glossary, flashcards, apps, and state-specific resources. Another useful feature is the assignment report. This is where you can check on your students' assignments, the ones that have been assigned, the ones that have been submitted, and maybe the ones that are late or overdue. This is the assignment report. You can check the answers on this page, and if you see that they need further help, there is access to the review video and the skills trainer. I hope this information has been helpful and will support all of you and all that you're doing at home to continue learning. Now I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, who's going to cover common troubleshooting issues.
So one of the biggest frustrations that we hear from our families is that the pages don't load on the Chromebooks, and we have that little circle and it's just loading, 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 and it never does. And so it's can be quite frustrating sometimes. So what we're finding out is that sometimes our students stay logged in for a long period of time. So we're really trying to encourage our families and students to log out on a regular basis. So that's one way of troubleshooting that, is to log out on a regular basis and then log back in. And here it is again on the Chromebook, how to do that, how to log out. Another option may be you might need to clear your cache or your history or your browsing data. And we had a short video, but it sounds like you're having a hard time hearing it, so we're not going to play it. But I believe some of that was addressed in the first learning series where they had the digital pieces. And so we can point you in those directions to help you with that, or we'll be glad to help you if that works better for you. So I'm going to hand it over to Amelia, who's going to share some K2 math at home activities.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'm so thankful that you guys have joined us tonight. Thank you for being here on a Thursday night. So I'm going to talk to you about number sense and how you can build that at home. So first of all, just a little background. Number sense is your ability to think flexibly about numbers, and having good number sense kind of helps with your mental math capabilities and things like that. So some things that you may have around the house that can help your child with this are Go Fish. That was one of my favorite childhood games. I can remember playing with my granny time after time. It was one of our favorites. So if you have like a kindergartner, playing Go Fish is great for number recognition and counting and things like that. If you have a first or second grader, you could use some number sentences when you're playing. So instead of saying, do you have any fours, you could say, do you have 2 plus 2? Or do you have 5 minus 1? So that's a way to, just incorporate some math. Matching, number match, having your child count their toys or items they have at home and matching it to a number. It's great for kindergartners. And then playing Guess My Number. And this is something that my kids at school like to do at the end of the day when we're packing up. So if you have a kindergartner, you could give them clues. You could work with numbers 1 through 10 or 1 through 20 and use comparative clues. Like I'm thinking of a number. The number's less than 9. The number's more than 4. Things like that, so they can narrow down, and it gets them thinking about which numbers come first, which come later, greater than, less than, that kind of thing. And then with your first and second graders, you could use place value. So there's a 1 in the tens place, or the value of the hundreds is 300. Incorporating some of that vocabulary and getting them thinking about the numbers and things like that. And then dominoes. They're fun to work with. I've never actually played dominoes the correct way, I guess. So I'm not even sure, but they're great math tools. So with your kindergartners, again, counting them and finding the total number on there. And then with your first graders, finding totals. So adding the two sides together and comparing. I know I just spent the last week with first graders working on comparative word problems. So knowing this person has 5, this one has 4. How many more does this one have than this one? Or how many fewer does this one have than this one? So working in some of that language and with the dominoes. And then second grade, we have just finished up even and odd. So that's an extra thing that you can incorporate there too. And looking at the two sides and thinking about the add-ins and things like that. And then of course you have your Big Ideas math tools that Brooke showed you earlier. Those manipulatives are awesome. You have your Rec and Rec, your cubes for counting, number 10 frames, all that stuff are great to incorporate and especially help you with your math at home. And other ideas, you guys may have board games at home, counting spaces, things like that. It's great practice. playing Scrabble. I mean, thinking about the math you have to do with that. So it's not only a language game, but you're, having to add to find the total of your points and finding out who has the most points, who has the least points. And then puzzles. A lot of time I've seen people like skip counting, write numbers on the back of puzzles, and the child puts the puzzle together upside down. And then you can flip it over at the end. So they put it together, maybe counting by 10. So they have to recognize which pieces connect. And then you flip it over to see what the picture is in the end. And then my child, we like to play, how if you go out to dinner or something and you have to wait a long time for your food. So we play I Spy, and sometimes we play it with numbers. So I'll say, I have a sign, I spy a sign with 7 letters. And that's thinking about my kindergartner and her being able to count and number recognition and things like that. And then some language to incorporate at home is compare. I feel like I've said that one a bunch today. Estimating. So thinking about, how many cookies do you think are in the jar, or how many toys do you think will fit in this basket? And I love to do that with my kids because, there's always toys everywhere and they're always reluctant to clean up. And I'll say, well, how many do you think can fit in there? And they'll make a guess. And then they're eager to check to see if their guess is right. So that helps you out there. And then total, difference, greater than, less than, least, more, less. Just some great vocabulary that you can easily, just in regular conversation, incorporate, So who has more cookies, or whose tower is the tallest, that kind of thing. Gets kids thinking about those math words. And I will turn it over to Mr. Yannick now.
I almost forgot to unmute myself. Thanks, Amelia. So grade 3-5 math at home, and I stuck to multiple uses for dice. I know in class, sometimes doing the basic work and doing the regular work, the kids, go through the motions, but you bring out dice, and for some reason, whatever that reason is, it's like we're at a carnival game and the kids get super excited and super into it. So making that piece a little bit fun. But in 3rd grade, the concept with multiplication, I'm going to speak with that, is all factors up to and including 10. So if you have a pair of dice at home, you have a Yahtzee game, any board game, if you have 2 dice, great. If you don't, you have the 1 die, you can roll it twice, multiply the numbers together. And going back to what Amelia said with board games, instead of, you roll the dice and count or add the number or the dice together to move the number of spaces, have your child multiply it. And move that many ways. And it makes the game a little bit more interesting because it's hard. You might go around the board a few times a little bit faster. So that's one thing you can do with dice with your 3rd grade child. In 4th grade, it's multiplying a 3-digit by 1-digit number or up to a 2-digit by 2-digit number. And so again, going back with the dice, rolling the dice to make the 2-digit number, roll it again to make a 1-digit number, or going a 2 by 2-digit, and then have them work through it to get you their product. And again, using that math vocabulary, not just the answer, but we're multiplying, so we want products with this. With 5th grade, it's a little bit another step up, so it's a 3 by 2. So we can roll the dice a couple times to make those numbers. But even with outside of just in the real world, going down the street, if you're with your child, walking with your child, you see street addresses. The house number was, whatever it is, and multiply that by how many houses you saw. So it could be easily a 3 by 2 number, doing things like that. So it's a great way to kind of make math more exciting. You don't know, it's more of a chance piece that brings it to life. So keeping it that way. Another thing you can do if you're 3rd grader, 4th grader, or 5th grader, whichever level they're at, to challenge them a little bit is, if they roll the dice and make a 2-digit number, not asking them to multiply them, but asking them to give you an equation. What numbers could you multiply together to give you this product? Sometimes it's not as easy, and especially with 5th graders, as they get further along, you might get some odd numbers in there, and they can throw decimals and fractions involved in that. But with the 3rd graders, if it's a number that one of those basic factors, basic facts, they can give you a multiplication problem instead of just saying, oh, well, this times this, those 2 numbers multiplied together will give you this. We'll flip it on them, and then it starts leading into that division piece, which your teachers will love you for building that bridge, I promise you. So it's not just dice that we could use. I'm the lone guy on this panel, and I know I was a mischievous and rambunctious child, so getting movement involved and some sports activities involved can be very, very helpful as well. And stuff that you wouldn't even think about. So sidewalk chalk. If you have sidewalk chalk at home, it's great to focus on maybe one set of facts. So if your child's into whatever sport they're in, I was just thinking about a lot of the kids that we have at recess love basketball. So if you incorporate, your 3 times tables and make squares and put the products in those squares, hold up a flashcard and your child shoots from that square and, they get that many points if they get it correct. So things like that, you can incorporate that with soccer. With any sport, you can use your imagination. It's limitless, it's boundless. You can make it whatever you want with that. Another piece with that is a goal is worth the amount of that product. So let's say you don't have the sidewalk chalk or just want to go and play a game, shoot hoops, whatever. Well, you're shooting baskets, you throw a multiplication problem out there with your child and they make the basket. And so now instead of worth 2 points or a 3-pointer, you now have a 15-point basket. It can make games really, really interesting. Throw out a challenge, if it's a 3rd grade student or 4th grade student, it might take a little bit more time, but to throw out that 2-digit by 1 digit or 2-digit by 2 digit, maybe a little bit simpler in the realm of like 12 times 12 area. But let them do that. And then, you can great come from behind wins that way. Another way to use this is solving X amount of problems. So if you go through flashcards to just build that fluency with the multiplication piece and however many problems they get correct, they can shoot that many baskets. If they're into running like I was, you could probably see the track singlet over my shoulder. That got me through college. They can do that many laps around the house. It's a great way for them to learn their math. It's fun and it burns some energy, parents. So if your child, you need them to get to bed, get them out there, get them moving, and get them to do math. And I'm sure one thing you have heard, maybe especially with your upper grade, elementary grade children, is the wonderful area model. I know I didn't have it growing up and I didn't know it or learn it this way, but it has helped a lot of students. So we'll see if the video volume is good. If not, I will talk over it.
Perfect. Thank you. That's what I was going to ask you.
Sure. All right, so we do not have the volume, it sounds like. So how to use the area model. So obviously here we have a 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication problem. And when you start with an area model, I'm waiting for my virtual self to catch up with my vocal self. You want to start with a rectangle. Basically, that's the first step. And I always tell kids, start with what you know, make a rectangle. So once you have made that rectangle, due to the number of digits you have, 24 is a 2-digit number, so we split that rectangle into 2 sections. Purposefully, one larger than the other due to place value. This also helps build that place value concept. Splitting the area model horizontally into 2 floors because you have another 2-digit number. And area models are based entirely off of place value. So that 2 is not just a 2, because it is in the tens place, that 2 is going to be worth 20. Let my other self catch up. That 4 in the ones place is just with 4, so it stays as a 4. Going with the other factor with 53, 50 again is in the, 5 is in the tens place, so it is worth 50. 3 is in the ones place, so it is going to be worth just that 3. Now, I've found a lot of times students get confused at this point because they're not sure what to multiply where. Throwing that multiplication sign up on the side, reminding you, this is like a distributive property in picture form. So I encourage my students to set up their multiplication problems. That 50 is going to carry through, be distributed across both numbers, both factors across the top. So in that first block, it's your 50 times your 20. And then we have, I'm not sure which way I went with this, so I want to know, I'm going to wait and see what I did. Okay, so I did solve it first. Okay, so you do your 5 times 2 is 10, and because you have a 10 times a 10, it becomes 1000 or 1000. So it's a great way too for your students to visualize, and then that place value piece, I know in 5th grade that's huge. I know that's built on all the way through, so that helps. Moving right along, that 50 gets distributed to the 4. So in that last block up top, we have 50 times 4. And again, 5 times 4 is 20. But because that was a 50, that was the 5 tens, it's 20 tens or 200. So using that language, that verbiage to that there's your students would hear in class, how many tens is 100 ties into this nicely. So now along the bottom, we distribute the 3 to both factors up top. So 3 times 20. And again, 3 times 2 is 6, but that was 2 tens. So it's actually 6 tens, which is 60. And then lastly, you're multiplying your ones by your ones. So 3 times 4. And, we can all breathe a sigh of relief because it's just 12. It finishes up nicely. Now, we're not quite done yet. Just like with traditional that you're used to doing, there is an addition piece to this. So now you take your partial products that are in blue and you add them together on the side, underneath, wherever you can work it out. But making sure when you do this, when you set up your problem, you are lining up that place value. That's another key piece to setting up your problems correctly, making sure your ones are aligned with your ones, tens, hundreds, and so on. And that is another nice piece, pay attention, helping your kids to slow down maybe on their math, not just trying to rush through and get a problem down and get an answer down so they can move on to the next thing, but making sure things are lined up, helping them get the correct product when they're done. And then you just add as normal. And I do apologize, my 200 there looks like zoo, but trying to write numbers with a mouse is not the easiest thing in the world. It takes a little bit of practice, and it's even then, it's still not the greatest. But you finally end up with 1,272. Now, and mentioning the area model, I'm sure it brings about some angst and frustration that you have seen, parents and children. So as was said at the beginning, I was an awful math student. I remember myself crying over math homework. My mom, who was a math-minded person, was like, this way, and we would duke it out. It would be ugly, but we don't want anybody to get to that point. For somebody who's not a great math student, I don't want them to be super frustrated and be turned off completely from math. It took me years to get to that point where I was comfortable with it, trying to head that for some students now. And for parents, for you fighting with your children, it's just going to make you frustrated and with this whole thing, and we have enough on our plates to worry about now anyway. So one thing, a couple strategies you can use is to set a timer. And I would talk with your child's teacher about this. I tell my parents if their child is struggling to get through all the problems they might have to do for homework, because some of these do take time, and we understand that, I suggest, after a conversation with the parents, I suggest setting a timer for 20 minutes. And if that child is legitimately, solidly working on those problems for 20 minutes, it's not, solving a problem while they're watching TV, but engaged, engrossed in that math for that full 20 minutes. When that timer is off, wherever they got. But that is a conversation you can have with your child's teacher, setting up that time. Chunking problems. You talk to your child, maybe there's 10 problems they have to do. You tell them, okay, you do the first half. You could take a 10, 15-minute break. Go do one of those sports activities. It doesn't even have to be math related. Just get up and move and get away from it for a while, and then come back and do the second half. The if-then chart is a lot like the chunking, but it's more of a rewards-based idea. If you do these 3 problems without, any fight, or you work solidly through these 3 problems, then you can have, 5 minutes of gaming or whatever it is that you want to set up with your child. So, they know they do this, they get something in return immediately. It's not later on when you're done and after a few minutes. It's you've finished these 3 problems. As soon as you're done, you get this. A checklist, just working through, making sure their space is set up. Did you make sure you have your problems in your workbook, your notebook? Did you look back at your notes? Things just to help them keep organized and keep things straight, so that way they have the best opportunity to have success with these. And it's also nice for you too, as a parent, instead of kind of trying to look and say, oh, well, where did you go? What did you do? You can run down the checklist with them, and then you start recognizing this, like, oh, well, you don't have your notebook out. You didn't work the problem out. Things like that just pick up. And giving praise. You'd be surprised at how far a quick little, hey, nice job. You worked really hard on that. I'm proud of you. Whether it's right or wrong, we'd love for them to be correct. But giving that praise, especially for a student who struggles in math, can go a long, long way. And they start building that confidence. When that confidence starts to happen, it's amazing what happens within just the math piece altogether. And just please keep communication with your child's teacher. We don't want anybody suffering through math outside of our room. We don't want them suffering inside our room either. But we don't want them suffering through math in any way, shape, or form. So Just keep that line of communication open is probably the best bit, and your teachers can give you a lot of things that they have found in class might work for your child that you can carry over at home. And at that point, I'm going to turn it over back to Mrs. Morris, and she can take it from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Yannick. Those were awesome ideas. Thank you for explaining the area model. If your children are too young to know what that is now, you will thank Mr. Yannick in years to come for that tutorial. And also, thank you so much for those tips on if your child is frustrated, because I think we have all experienced that, whether it be ourselves or with our children at home. And I just love those tips of chunking problems and setting timers and being active and understanding that math, along with all of our learning, is really a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if there's times when you just have to stop with an assignment, that is okay. You can come back to it another time, but you have to pace yourself, especially during remote learning. Thank you to all the other panelists as well. I'm going to open it up now for the families at home. For anyone who has different questions or things that we haven't had a chance to talk about, if you want to drop those in the chat, you have this amazing panel of teachers here. Ms. Baker, Ms. Simmons, Mr. Yannick, Ms. Cavanis, Ms. Atkins. We even have our math specialist, Ms. Gray. So really ask away, try and stump us, try and challenge us. I'll keep talking until we get our first question, because I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to type in the chat. So,
and Mariah, can I jump in as well?
Yeah,
As
definitely.
we're waiting for those our typists to type in their questions and so forth. I know sometimes these new math strategies can be intimidating and can be scary, and it's unknown. We didn't learn math this way. Our whole panelists, none of us learned mathematics this way, because there wasn't a lot of math education studies. There was a ton in reading, but there was not, back in the day, a ton of math studies. And so there's been a lot of brain research and studies about mathematics and how children learn mathematics. And so the beauty of these strategies that we're teaching them, like the area model, for example, is a great strategy that we introduce. And I know it kind of looks like it's all jumbled up, but it's very organized, a lot of number senses going on in there. But also, eventually, our students are going to be able to do that mentally. And that's the beauty of it, because it's all on our base 10 system. So working about tens and hundreds and thousands. And they're able to apply those strategies to decimals and to fractions as we start what we call decomposing or breaking apart those numbers. We start doing that in negative numbers in the middle school. And not only that, but when we start getting into high school, have you ever heard of factoring polynomials? Yeah, so this area model is a beautiful model that can carry our students all the way through high school. So I just want to put that plug in really quick, that these strategies our elementary teachers are teaching are not just for today. It's not just for their grade. It's for their future that's going to carry them throughout. That was my plug. So I see we have a couple of questions. Ms. Almond, thank you. If we teach them math the way we learned, and if they get the same answer, will they be wrong? Excellent question. And my answer is no. You know, we do want them to get the same answer. We do want exposure to those strategies, right? So we want to expose them. But if they can do it your way, the way that we all learned it, absolutely. But we do have some struggling friends who might not be able to do it our way. We also have some high-flying friends who, again, we want to encourage that mental math to be able to do it mentally in their head. That's going to help them later on with their mathematical literacy. So I would definitely encourage doing it your way, as well as the teacher's way that they're exposing to, because it can open the door for future mathematics as well. So that's a great question. And you know, we didn't learn math this way. So be sure in the big ideas, as Brooke shared in the very beginning, that you're using those videos. If you have a way to scan those, a QR reader, or your camera on your, if you have an iPhone, or then it can help your students and help you with learning some of those strategies, because it can open just so many doors for mathematical literacy.
Ms. Gray, can I jump in on that really quick?
Yeah.
So one thing I always stress to my students in math, there's, you're trying to get from A to B, and there's 1,000,001 ways to get from A to B. The important thing is that they are fluent with whatever method that they are using. They understand what they're doing, and it's not just haphazardly coming across the answer. So if the traditional method, the way we were all taught, is working for them, let them run with that. If they try something new and they want to try it and it's working for them as well, let them do that too. And I saw Miss Almond, you said you're too old for the new way. I feel the pain. I had to teach myself a lot of the new ways, but have your child try to explain it to you. Try to teach you when they come home, which is another great way for them to show that they understand it and can get that concept across and talk it out. Not that you have to adapt and use it all the time, but let them be the teacher for a minute. They might really enjoy that.
Yeah, Mr. Yannick, I think that's a great idea to have the kid teach this. And Miss Almond, just so you know, we're all in this together. I think my comments to my 4th grader just last week was, I don't know, I didn't learn it this way. And I'm a teacher myself, right? So I totally get what you're saying. But just to piggyback off of the beginning of our presentation with Miss Simmons and Miss Baker about the big ideas, it was really cool. I had my child well, actually, she showed me how to do it because I hadn't had this webinar yet. But she brought me her workbook and the QR code was there. So we scanned the QR code on my phone and it took us through a tutorial on it. And it was very short. It was like 2 minutes. So it was very helpful. So definitely use those little QR codes. Those help a lot.
All right, I see another excellent question from Ms. Dyson. Can you please explain the importance of showing your work? Is it okay for the child to just solve the equations in our head? Which panelists would like to explore that?
I'll jump on that one too if you want.
Go for it.
So I think the answer, is it okay for the child to solve equations in their head? Sure, if they're there. It's not something to jump into, and I tell my students, especially at the 5th grade level, some of our problems are processes and they're a little longer, so try to keep everything straight can be a little bit difficult. So just to keep things organized, sometimes it's better on paper. And then the importance of showing work, I know for me, I ask, especially when we learn a new concept, to show the work that we're doing. So in case there is a misconception somewhere within what they're doing, we don't have to reteach the whole concept again. We can pinpoint exactly where the misconception is, fix it, and then once they get the grasp and move on to that, then they can move to that mental math state. I tell a lot of my students all the time, they're much better. If I was sitting in their seats, I'd be in the back of the room with my head down, not wanting to be called on or looked at because they're worlds ahead of where I was at that age. So again, I understand the frustration you might be having, or if they can do it mentally and they're okay, that's okay. But with those new concepts and those longer problems, I suggest doing it just so they keep things straight.
And I want to jump in, since I am virtual, a lot of times if they're doing the work at home, the teachers may request that so that they can prove or show what they're doing at home. So I think it goes back to that good communication with your teacher. If you know your student is comfortable doing the mental math and you see that the fluency there, then communicate that with the teacher. Say it's a frustration thing. They know how to do it. It is correct. What do you see? Can we do it this way? And I think that helps, that two-way communication.
That's a great point, Ms. Baker, because the calculator tab is not too far away on the Chromebooks and iPads, and not that our children would necessarily want to do that, but we're all humans, and it does show us, if it's virtual at home, what they're doing. I also think Mr. Yannick had a great point that it really helps the teacher pinpoint where the problem is, and it helps students slow down for those computations where it's so easy to rush through and sometimes make small mistakes. It's really helpful because at some point a student's going to get to a point where that math is a challenge. Even our best math students are going to reach that level. And so building in these techniques to help them slow down and think through the processes will help them, if it's not in kindergarten or 1st grade, in middle or high school when they get to that challenging math. So I would always encourage that. We had another Q&A comment that I thought was really helpful. The comment, it says that so many of the assignments are very small print. Would it be possible that it could be a little larger? And I think I'm going to open that one up to the panel in a minute to maybe talk about enlarging stuff on our screens, if it is a screen. And then if it's paper, we can talk about that as well. And then the other point was also teachers sometimes do video and it is so dark that you cannot see your work. That is great feedback. Thank you. That's something that we at the district can talk about. So I appreciate you giving that information to us. Also, if you reach out to your teacher and just make sure that the teacher's aware of that, they might not even know that. So would anyone like to talk about how to make the font larger on the computer? Okay, so usually if you pull up a browser, up in the upper right corner under the X, which is, you know, the button you would use to get out of the screen, there are 3 vertical dots. And if you click on those 3 vertical dots, you'll find the zoom, and you can adjust the zoom to make this screen larger or smaller based on what you need. So if you are doing something on the screen and it's too small, even if it's on that big ideas, you can maximize it by making it larger. And then also someone else wrote that you can have a shortcut where it's just the control and the plus. And that would be really helpful to show your child how to do to maximize, like for a question, you can make it much bigger, and then make sure you show them how to get out of it and make it smaller again, you know, to take it down. And then Brooke, do you have something you want to add?
If your student or your child, sorry, has an iPad, then they can, you know, they use their fingers, they spread their hand apart, or they pull back together, because you don't always, it's not always easy to see that browser feature, but with the iPad, you can use your hand. And if you have a Mac, you can do that with your mouse pad.
That's a great point. So yeah, you actually like put your fingers right on the screen and make it larger and smaller. And then if you're talking about it being on a worksheet, an actual print document, sometimes I rewrite the problems for my child at home or at school. If they need more blank space, like white space, that helps some visual learners to be able to kind of, or if your child has larger print. So don't be afraid to rewrite it, even if it's just on a sheet of paper, and then staple it to the work and send it in that way. Does anyone else have anything to add? All right, looks like we have one more. Are the processes tested? Would anyone like to take that? I'm assuming it has to do with the different methods of doing the math.
I wouldn't say the processes are outright tested, but I do know they may come across questions like for an area model of multiplication where there may be a section of that area model blank, and they will need to fill it in. So they're not necessarily forced to use any certain process to solve problems on any sort of assessment. I know I definitely don't do that, but I do make them accountable in a sense that they can use it if they had to in a pinch. At least be aware of it, be familiar with it, know how to work it a little bit. Because if you think about all these processes and ways to solve problems, it's like a toolkit. You know, one screwdriver isn't always going to fit the bill. So you need a couple different sizes. So it's not, you know, you may not use it all the time, but having it there is always okay. So I liken it to that. You know, they might have their favorite screwdriver, and that's great, but always have that one in case that screwdriver breaks, or it's not big enough or too small for the job, or it's too big for the job, whatever the case may be, just so they can have something to fall back on, and just be aware of how to manipulate those processes.
And so just to chime in with that as well, is that in our North Carolina Standard Courses study, it is very explicitly stated as far as what strategies teachers are expected to teach. So if you can see behind Miss Baker, you can see that she has her empty number line there. And that strategy is explicitly stated that she has to teach that. She has to expose her students to it. Mr. Yannick has to expose his students to the area model. That is the expectation from our senior courses study in North Carolina. But it's not that every student has to master that particular strategy. That's why we offer a variety of strategies so that the students with the teacher and family support can figure out which strategy is the most fluent for them. So which one is the most accurate, the most efficient, the most flexible. Because again, we want to build mathematical thinkers, and so we can build that literacy for the future.
That's right. And a lot of it has to do with your child's learning style. And it's really helpful, especially since we have our children at home and are doing remote learning in some capacity, to get to know, is your student a visual learner? Are they an auditory learner? Are they a kinesthetic, like they like those movements, like Mr. Yannick was talking about, doing activity? And then that can help with the type of strategies. So for that visual learner, they're going to really enjoy that area model. And that's going to really help them chunk the information. And the more you can teach your child about his or her learning style, the better they're going to be able to do in all subjects, and that's math included. So it looks like we don't have any other questions. So and we have come to the end of our hour. So I want to thank this wonderful panel of teachers for giving up their evenings tonight and helping spread their love and enthusiasm for math. They've been absolute rock stars. And I also want to thank all of the parents on this call, because this has truly been a partnership during remote learning. And it's really redefined how we're teaching children. No longer is it just the teacher and the student, but it's the teacher, the student, and the parent. And we couldn't do it without you. And I know math looks so different right now than when we were growing up. So I really appreciate, and I think every teacher on this panel appreciates your willingness to be part of this evening. It shows how much you care about your children and how much you want them to do well. So thank you so much for joining us. And we are so fortunate to be partnering in your child's education. Thank you all.
Can I mention one thing before we close it out?
Definitely.
Super excited. We found out just a little bit ago that Big Ideas has donated 4 gift cards in which we're going to be doing a drawing from all of our participants from this evening. So thank you, parents and families, for joining in, but 4 of you will be receiving a gift card. And so we'll be doing that drawing shortly. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Big Ideas. Appreciate their support as well.
Man, the night just got better. Math on a Thursday and a potential gift card. So thank you all. And with that, we will sign off. Have a great night.